Okay, good morning everyone. First of all, thank you Ila, Benny, Zohar, Moran for the invitation, for the organization. Very impressive. I'll try within the next couple of minutes to explain how we, as let's call it as a big group, having to do with ports, with ships, with trucks, with trains, with terminals, with chemicals, with oils, with fuels. How do we tackle, how do we access new technologies and let's say having the aim, the target also to be smart investors into new technologies. So I'll try and touch on that. איפה לוחצים? All right, maybe the easiest way to explain where we stand, and by that diagram I represent Gadot. Without the port is a new acquisition that we did just in the last couple of months alongside with the Adani Group, which is very, very, very big and massive pan-Asian, let's call it, a network of ports. So I may dare to say that if we adopt a technology, for example here in the Haifa port, it has the immediate access to all the Indian and Asian network of shipping. So I think that's an edge to have a thought about. But let's come back for a second to Gadot. So Gadot, if you look at the blue columns, this is the EBITDA of the group in the last 5-6 years. Fast growing, 20% a year, I think quite okay financially wise. And then the green ones are representing our public 5 years plan that we issued, for example, to our investors or to the board. So I honestly believe that in order to maintain such a growth along the next couple of years, there's no way, let's call it, to escape the need. It's a necessity to invest into sustainable, into ESG technologies. You have to do that. We are trying to lead the market, and let me give you a couple of examples for that. Okay, so basically speaking, if we, as I said before, an industrial group, a logistics group, very heavy in supply chain, blue collar, how do we even consider an investment into, let's call it ESG technology? How do we do that? So in this slide, I would say let's split it into two. So the first three criteria are the obvious ones. You need innovation. You need a good team, you need a good return, otherwise you don't go to any board or investment committee. This is obvious. But what we do in the last couple of years, we search for startups that can provide or put on the table, let's say, one or at least one of the following 4 criterias. It should allow us as a group to be an anchor client. Sometimes we invest into a startup alongside with buying or being the anchor client for the technology itself. We can be a design partner to some extent in a few innovations. We can take the products, if it's a little bit more advanced, and be the distributor of the merchandise or of the product, or we can be the provider, the supplier of the logistics or the supply chain. We have as a group, I would say, in Israel, the majority of the logistics and petrochemical infrastructure. Same we have in Northwest Europe. So imagine you're a startup, you don't have money, you need a constant, reliable supply chain. Sometimes we do the investment alongside with being a supplier in that respect. So I would say the easiest way is to give you a few examples, and by that maybe it'll be easier to have a thought what we look for, what we do, and I will end in a couple of minutes by saying what I'm saying now. We are on a regular basis searching for investments. We are all the time searching for innovations, and either of you that have any idea, any concept, any venture, approach us. I will give some contacts, and please do that. אולי אני אעביר את זה פשוט, אני לא יודע מי זה הלחצן, אבל אולי אני אעשה את זה רק אם תגידו לי איפה לוחצים. Okay, I'll simply run through a couple of investments. Have a look, you'll get the concept. This is an investment we did just in the last few months. It's done in Holland. The innovation is Dutch. In that case, you see here one of the visuals of our ships cruising between North America to Northwest Europe to the Mediterranean, full of chemicals. Believe it or not, this chemical tanker is having sails. Now the sails, of course, are designed in a certain way. They are very well equipped for the new operations of such a complicated ship with hazardous materials, patented. But in such a case, for example, we are the client for the product itself. We are the beta site to see that it's actually working, and we are an investor. So of course the point investment-wise is to mix it, to have a benefit as the client, as the beta site with the investment, and everybody wins. So just as an example, we tested this patent in 2 of our vessels in the last couple of months. We reduced the fuel consumption by about 10%. Fuel consumption, less emissions, sustainable, very, imagine how simple it is, simply to use sails. By the way, yesterday or in the last couple of days, we saw a very big cruise ship, I think belongs to Club Med, with sails. Very nice, much more sexy, I must say, than our vessels. Nevertheless, the concept is very, very simple, simply adapted to new technologies and new ways of operations of such a complicated ship. 1. An innovation that we invested in that case, a Japanese startup. By the way, 90% of our fleet is Japanese. We have a very, very deep relationship with the Japanese industry, which is very well into marine logistics. In such a case, it's a kind of a propeller boss cap fins, which means that it's a small device that is inserted over the main engine, and the same is making the engine work more efficiently in seawater, in the area, the very complicated area of sailing all the time in the oceans. And in such a case, we tested on one of our ships 4% reduction in usage of fuels. Very, very, very simple, efficient, can be implemented on all ships, I would say, in the coming few years. Same, we are the client, we are the beta site, and we are an investor. Okay, let's have an Israeli example. In this example, we are implementing both in Gadot and in Haifa port. Let's call it a safety hub, a control center, a national control center that is having to do with, let's say, absorbing data from all players that are involved in the hazardous material supply chain and handling, getting this big data and analyzing it very, very rapidly and dispersing the information online to all the regulators and users. We are doing that alongside with an Israeli startup, and exactly the same, sorry to repeat myself, but this is the point. We are the client. We are testing for the first time such a concept within, let's call it the northern Israel area, later on with the Israeli area, and we are an investor. Same with a German startup called Dex Oil, with a very sophisticated lubricant that we are again testing on our ships, and alongside with that, we are the investor. In this case, because as a way of working, as a line of business, we are distributing globally, but mainly in let's say mainly in Europe and in Israel, but let's call it globally, we are distributing all sorts of lubricants and oils. So if that patent is actually working and seems economical and sustainable, we will get the license and start exporting and distributing the products. So again, it's a combination of an industrial partner with a financial investment, let's call it. Recently, we took a lot of our space, extra space, let's say. Imagine we have big facilities with multi-tanks, ports, terminals, ships, etc., and a lot of empty space, which is not so sensitive because there's no residential or offices or commercial buildings around. So imagine it's more built or more right, more easy to implement, for example, for wind energy devices. We open such a field of wind production, energy wind production site in Ghent, in Belgium. Saves a lot of money. I would say saves a lot of emission. And last, we invested in a very, very sophisticated Israeli startup called Nanosono, which is having to do with the patented new nanoparticles, having to do with multiple industries. Again, what it does basically is lowering pollution, bottom line, lowering pollution, and we in that case are an investor, but we are the producer of the product. As Michael, the participant in the first panel said, imagine what do we have in Israel. I think we're innovative, I think we're quick, but we are very small. Never it would happen that the mass production of materials would happen in Israel, but for the first few phases of the R&D, of the initial production, of the, let's call it the beta sites, the proof of concepts phases, on that, I think we can provide a lot of added value. So in that case, we actually created a small factory for them. We are producing for them the first batches of materials to be tested, to be commercialized, to be used by a few clients. Once it's become massive, of course, it'll be produced all around globally. So to end or to sum up, we are on the search always as a port, as Adani, as Gadot, in all respects. We are looking all the time for innovations. We are willing, or actually we are aiming to play a couple of roles in that picture: investment alongside with a design partner, client, distributor, producer, supplier, whatever. To make it easier for you, I wrote down our contacts. So one is Udi Sharon, the CEO of the Haifa port, which is very interested in that, into that, and available for that. And the second is Moran from Gadot. You can approach any of them. We will try to tackle as soon as possible, as quick as possible, any innovation and any idea. Thank you very much.